No, ignore the offense, right?
How
Ignore
can
the
you ignore
offense.
the offense? That's the whole point scoring
Because you've got to
system,
look at the
mate.
defense. The defense is what gets your offense in the park. If your offense is on the park, you can utilize your QB, who is a beast. Not
Boys,
only that, they have an elite RB system, mate. So they're
boys,
just
they
going to
don't.
be
They
whipping it.
actually don't. They don't.
They're going to be
They just
Boys,
straight
whipping
up
it
don't.
through.
boys, I thought we said no beef on the potty. Pretty
Mate.
sure we agreed that before we started.
Yeah, well,
It's
this
just,
man's just contradicting himself. Last
I'm
week he was
just
arguing Josh Allen's not a prospect because his team's a defensive-heavy team. Now he's saying you want a team who's good on defense. So I don't
He,
think we can trust the word he's saying.
he loves his.
Um,
He loves.
It's a miracle! Oh, yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle. Oh, that ball is close! He's given him! He's given him! Peter Siddle's got a hat-trick on his birthday!
Hello and welcome back to episode 44 of the On the Ball podcast. Took a while there because we are filming this a couple of days in advance. We're recording this on a Sunday. It's going up the next Saturday. How's your weekend been, boys? We're only a couple of hours away from ending it, but at this point, days don't really matter in lockdown. But how was your weekend, Curtis?
disgraceful because the Hawks got bummed once again, mate. So just gonna leave that one there. But Pilch's boys also got bummed, so eat my shit, Pilch. But yeah.
Yeah, exact same answer for me. Shit weekend, just ruined by Port losing.
Yeah, fair enough. No, you can never be happy with your team coming first, can you, mate? But there we go. There are two guests, Curtis and Pilch. And we're once again doing an NFL fantasy episode this time. So last episode, if you joined us for that one, we discussed our top 12 quarterbacks. And then for this one, we are discussing, the Smokies. We've got a few questions, like categories lined up, and we're gonna see which quarterbacks fit each question. Like, so who do we think we should steer clear of? Who do we think has large potential? Who do we think could be a bit of a smoky that might not get picked up in the drafts or at least in the early rounds anyway? So I don't see why we can't just start. So the first category is, all right, let's say you're in round 14 of the draft. The top 12 is gone. So the top 12 from our last episode has been picked up. However, you only have one starter. So you need to pick up someone outside of that top 12 to be your starter. Who are you going with, Curtis? We'll start with you, mate.
Cam, mate, that's all I got to say. Cam Newton all the way. He's just a beast, mate. Just a beast. Like, don't even understand how he wasn't in our top 12. Got to say that straight off the bat. But yeah, I reckon he's gonna have a stellar season. He's with New England, mate, and I don't know if many people know this, but they're actually pretty good at tailoring their offense to the strengths of their QB. So I reckon we're going to see our boy Cam Newton absolutely whipping up the points, and he should have been in the top 12, but people like Pilch just fucking dogged him. So
Mate, that was Cork that
sad.
dogged him.
Who's
Well,
Cork?
you
Sorry,
also
my
dogged
bad.
him, mate.
But
I
anyway,
did play a
yeah,
part in it.
I think he's going to have a huge season, back to MVP kind of form. That's what I'm predicting right now. He's had a year to get rid of his injuries, so he's back in prime form. And I think your boys have just, not really seen the potential there in what could be a pretty good, juicy pickup in the draft late down in the rounds.
I think some of the key words you've just said there is potential, could, should, and I'm not looking for that in my starting quarterbacks, mate. I don't want to be drafting someone who could turn out to be the 20th best quarterback in the season, which Newton has that potential this year. He's no certainty to be a decent, consistent scorer. So for that reason, although if I was a risky person, I would 100% take him, but I'm more looking to go with a safe option in this situation and then maybe pick up a risky one for my bench or something, or after round one. So I'm probably going to go. Yeah, what, mate?
I was just going to say, your top 12's gone, so it's going to be risky anyway, mate. So
I,
you
I
might as
don't think
well
it is.
go with the risk with the highest reward, mate. And let's be honest, Cam Newton is the highest reward outside that top 12. He's a former MVP. He's in an elite team. He has the potential to rack up points. He's going to have playing time the entirety of the season. There's no downside to getting Cam Newton in your team.
Except for the fact that he is just not playing in an elite team whatsoever. What in that offense is elite? But
Bill Belichick.
Ignore the offense, right?
how
Ignore
can
the
you ignore the
offense.
offense? That's the whole point scoring
Because you've got to
system,
look at
mate.
the defense. The defense is what gets your offense in the park. If your offense is on the park, you can utilize your QB, who is a beast.
Boy.
Not only that, they have an elite RB system, mate. So they're
Boys,
just
they
going to
don't.
be
They
whipping
actually
it.
don't. They don't.
They're going to be
They
Boys,
just straight up
whipping it.
Boys, I thought we said no beef on the potty. Pretty sure we agreed that before we started.
Yeah, well, this man's just contradicting himself. Last week he was arguing Josh Allen's not a prospect because his team's a defensive-heavy team. Now he's saying you want a team who's good on defense. So I don't think we can trust the word he's saying.
He loves his Cam Newton.
Mate, all I got to say is when the season comes and Cam's whipping up points and Josh Allen's an absolute dud, and same with Carson Wentz, you guys will be coming to me and being like, I'm sorry, on your hands and knees, and that's the way I'm going to leave it.
So for this category / question, I'll be taking Tom Brady. I don't think he has the upside of what people are saying he does. Like, I don't think he could be a top 10 QB. But I think he'll just be a consistently decent quarterback this season. He's got obviously improved weapons than he did last year, probably playing behind a worse O-line, but he's just in a better attacking system, and down at Tampa, a better attacking coach, believe it or not. In Bruce Arians loves to kind of just likes to reject the defensive side of the footy and just try and put up 40 points on a team like he did last year. So yeah, I'll back in Tom Brady. Like I was saying, I think he's a little bit overrated, which might seem actually be taken in the top 12. But I'm happy to take him as my second starter, and then maybe pick up someone who has a bit more upside on my bench. But yeah, I'd want to pick someone who's a bit more stable and secure, especially for those first 3 weeks or early on in the season. I don't really want to be picking someone who could flop and then all of a sudden I'm scrambling on the waivers to try and find a QB starter. So I would take Tom Brady, but Jimmy G, I think you can't really go too wrong with him. I don't think he's going to be good, but I don't think he'll ever be bad in such a good attacking team. And then, as Curtis said, Cam Newton's not a bad shout, but I just don't like the risk factor with him. But he is also a good option. Pilch, who are you looking at, mate?
Well, last week we saw both of you, especially James Curtis, absolutely dog Carson Wentz and then made him slip out of our top 12. And I have him as my QB9, so easily Carson Wentz for me. I just think there's no possible way there's no possible way that he won't increase in point production per game next season, because his offense was just depleted here. He had like 4th string wide receivers, and he was playing with niggles each week. So yeah, I reckon there's no way he won't be a top 12 QB next season.
Yeah, I don't hate it. But the thing that worries me now is it's not just last year where he was a bit off. It's also 2018. He was actually the QB 20 of that season. So that's a bit of a worry there. But in 2017, he was the second quarterback in the whole league. And he was probably going to win the MVP if it wasn't for an injury in about round 11. So,
and they've
I see that pick.
They've picked up Jalen Reagor in the draft as well, which will only help him as well.
Yeah, that's true. I've actually gone with Wentz in another category. I've put him in the who has the highest chance of finishing in the top 5. As you were saying, completely down in terms of his wide receiver depth last year. He was throwing to people who were like, starting their first few games in the NFL. And in 2017, he showed that he can be a top 5 quarterback in I think it was his rookie year, it might have been his second year. He came second then, was looking like one of the best QBs in the league. Yeah, so in non-fantasy terms, he's a great quarterback, one of the best in the comp, I reckon. So that's why I reckon he has top 5 potential. If he can just stay healthy and the rest of his attack can as well, I think he could become a really consistent, higher quality performer in fantasy terms. So he's my number 1 pick in terms of who has the highest chance of finishing in the top 5. What about you, Russell? Who
Cam,
do you think has got the big upside?
had Cam in there, but I did come up with a backup plan because obviously can't be saying Cam the whole time. So I did say Baker Mayfield. I think Baker's gonna have a better season than last year, and if we use his form from his rookie season, you saw plenty of potential there, and obviously we all know that they have huge offensive weapons at Cleveland. So I think if they can get off to a hot start and continue on with the season, as they do, as they do in their hypothetical start, then I reckon he's got a big shot to rack up plenty of points, plenty of TDs, and potentially finish in the top 5 QBs for the season.
Pilch?
Yeah, well, for me, I'd also say Wentz, but I won't repeat the same thing. So I'll go a smoky in Daniel Jones from the New York Giants. I think Curtis is one of you's high on Jones as well. Forgot who it was.
Yeah, I'll back him in. Yeah.
But yeah, in his last 12 games last season, he was a top 8 quarterback, and he's actually got, I think, an underrated wide receiver trio in Slayton, Tate, and Shepard, yep. And also Saquon as well will receive a load of passes.
And Ingram as well.
And Ingram. And he's got the dual threat as well. He likes to run it. And obviously going into his second year, you'd expect improvement on his end. So I think he has a lot of upside.
Yeah, no, I rate that. I 100% agree. I think Jones is one of the guys who has the most upside. He was actually my QB 11 in terms of my rankings, but the reason I didn't say him for the first one is I just think he's a bit risky. If I like needed a second start, I don't think I would back him in to be that like consistently good. But I definitely think there'll be a few weeks this season where he could be the top scoring QB if the Giants put up some points. And yeah, if the Giants are a bit more successful this year, I definitely think Dan Jones could be a big benefitter. Is that a word?
Beneficiary.
He could be a big beneficiary from that, and that could see him in the top 5. Another name that I've thrown around here is Ryan Tannehill. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as last year, but last year, if you account for injuries and stuff, he was the 5th ranked quarterback. And in the second half of last year, which is where he really hit top form, he was the 3rd ranked. So that basically just explains my reasoning, really. I agree with the general consensus that I think he will regress a little bit. I think their team kind of just caught flames at the right time last year. But for me, that's a pretty much a good enough reason for him to be one of the candidates to fit this bill with the fact that he's done it in the past. So although something that he doesn't have like the Wentz has or maybe the Jones has, that he's shown inconsistency over his whole career, where like Wentz has been inconsistent, but it's more due to injury, and then Jones hasn't really shown that he's not good yet. So that's my problem with Tanners. But yeah, I don't mind Tanners. I think he's probably been a bit stiff. I think he's being rated as like the 15th or something best quarterback in the league, which is quite a surprise given the fact that he did come 5th last year. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess he doesn't throw the ball much. So
I actually low-key rate Curtis's call with Mayfield. No one's going to touch him, so he'll be available, and he has some absolute weapons in his offense. Like Odell, you'd think Odell will definitely bounce back, and then Hunt, Chubb, and Landry. Yeah. And they added Austin Hooper as well.
Yeah, and they strengthened their O-line, which was a big thing. I think he was one of the most sacked quarterbacks, if not the most sacked last year, which was a big issue for him.
That's actually
And
massive.
they traded in, I think, Jack Conklin from Tennessee, and they drafted a guy in the first round. So that's big for them. In my rankings, they've gone from the 23rd best O-line to the 6th best, so that's big. And he also has the 4th easiest fixtures out of the whole league, so definitely some upside for Baker. The only thing I've got against him is in his 2 years in the league, he's been outside the top 20. So that's like it'd be a very big step up, but everything else on his offense is kind of suggesting that it could be time for him to take the next step.
I was just,
By the way,
I was just looking at Curtis's head before. He was absolutely chuffed with the
I was
Mayfield.
I was about to go and you boys are looking pretty sexy tonight, aren't you? Just but,
Did you hear about Jamal Adams, Pilch? I was talking about with it, Kurt. Yeah, that's big. Can't lie. It could affect some fantasy calls. Nah, I don't think it will, but that's big pickup for the Seahawks. Two first rounders and a third round though. That's pretty sizable. But
that's
when like Houston are picking up an O lineman for 2 first rounds, I think that's probably a fair price for Jamal Adams. He's one of the best defenders in the league.
Yeah.
Also, probably suggests that Jadeveon Clowney will be going somewhere else because I don't think they'll be able to keep Clowney and get Adams. So I've seen some rumors that he might be going to the Saints, he might be going to the Titans, so he'll be a big pickup for whoever adds him. But yeah, you were talking about Dan Jones, Pilch, but for me, he suits another category better. For me, I like him more as a streamer. So we saw last year the Giants weren't afraid to get in a few high-scoring shootouts against teams. Oh, for those who don't know, they might not understand what this means, but the best streamer. So streaming is when you bring in a quarterback for like a week, whether it be for a bye or an injury or a week or two. You usually do it based on their fixture. So what I posed to the lads was pretend every team is playing the worst team in the comp. Who would you like to pick out of the non-top 12 players? Like who has the highest potential to score big? And for me, I've gone D Jones and also Tom Brady once again. I think both of them, they just have not insane, but really good offenses, great wide receivers. And I think both the Buccaneers and the Giants showed last year that they have 40-plus point games in them. And both teams would be looking to improve this year. So I could see both those quarterbacks as good streaming options, especially against some of the weaker sides. However, in saying that, I don't think Tom Brady plays too many bad sides given his division. So yeah, it might be tough. And the Giants will probably get smacked most weeks, but I'm sure they'll be able to put up some points every now and then. Curtis, who are you looking at as a good streaming candidate?
got a few. I mean, if you don't have Cam in your team and he's just free out there, then he could be a good 1 weeker. But I've got a few saucy ones. Who did I have? I had potentially, depends how well Fitzpatrick's playing, but if he's playing pretty well, there's a chance that Miami might be all right this season. So he could be a good shout. Baker, as I mentioned before, and then obviously Tanner's that you've mentioned as well, but he also comes into my later category as well. So maybe not actually, but we'll just keep with that one. But yeah, I reckon Baker, as I said before, is a good shout. So yeah, not much to add on to this point, but yeah.
Fair enough. Pilch?
Yeah, well, Brady missed our consensus top 12, so he's definitely my answer there. In that system, there's going to be weeks where Godwin and Evans will just chuck up like 150 yards each, a few touchdowns, but I do think Brady will be drafted in most leagues, so
yeah, 100%.
I rate Mayfield in this category, Tanner's, and also maybe someone like Kirk Cousins. He can throw a few touchdowns here and there. So
yeah,
basically, as you were saying to us before, Corker, someone on a good offense able to chuck up bulk points.
Yeah, it has to be said this category is a bit hard to plan for because it just depends who's on the waivers at the time, really. because although all these guys are outside our top 12, so theoretically they shouldn't be picked up in the draft, but like people will pick up players for their bench in the draft. They'll pick them up on the waivers in the draft in the first couple rounds. So at this point, the likes of Tom Brady, Cam Newton, they're probably going to be hard to snag off the waivers. But we'll pretend we have them.
I've
Bit
just
of a
thought
luxury.
a couple juicy ones.
Yeah, who
Potentially,
is name it? Joe
you
Burrow.
could hit up Tyrod Taylor potentially. He's at the Chargers, and obviously we know the Chargers are pretty stacked. So
Pretty
bar
stacked.
they are bar the QB. I would say like they've
They've got a good lineup. Yeah,
they've got a good lineup, and Kirk Cousins I reckon might be a little juicy shout. If like he's in the form he was last year, towards the end of season, he was racking up points. So
You had
I
him,
reckon
didn't you?
I did, and he was actually playing pretty well for me for quite a bit. So yeah, I reckon he could be a little shout as well potentially.
yeah. I just wrote, this wasn't a category we were going to chat about, but I just wrote down a few names who I think could surprise the fantasy community, and Tyrod Taylor was in there. He's a dual threat quarterback, and I think he played the first couple games of the season in 2018, and then Baker Mayfield overtook him at Cleveland. But in those few games, he was like around the 15th ranked quarterback in the league. So he does have scoring potential, and he's a big runner of the footy. So that's big for fantasy.
And the year
two
before
other
he was
players.
pretty good.
Yeah, he was actually in 2017, where he came 17th. So yeah, he's shown that he's probably not going to be a superstar. I wouldn't recommend drafting him. And also a bit of a tough situation with Justin Herbert just waiting in the wings for a bad performance. But he's someone who, if he got on a roll or they played a bad team, could put up a few points, and he could, rush through a few touchdowns, which could see him go big. But a few other players I thought who could surprise us. Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy?
He didn't do that much last year when he came in for Drew Brees in terms of fantasy, but I think that's because they didn't really let him do much. I think Peyton kind of wasn't sure how good he was, so he kind of just went the Tom Brady approach and just said, like, stick to your 15-yard passes. Don't try and do anything too out there, where I think this Carolina offense might be a bit more progressive. Might let him try a few other things. They've got pretty good weapons, actually. You've obviously got the best running back in the league with Christian McCaffrey, and you've got a good wide receiving core with DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. And yeah, so I think he could be someone who might just, go under the radar. I'm not saying he's a person you should draft or anything, but it wouldn't surprise me if he maybe outperforms where people are rating him right now on the draft boards. And then someone else is Joe Burrow. Once again, 100% do not draft him. If anything, he could be overrated. But right now he's being rated as like, well, I actually rated him as like the 29th quarterback. So it's more, he could surprise me. But they've got actually pretty good attack, don't they? If Joe Mixon stops his holdout, Joe Mixon's arguably a top 10 running back. Then they've got AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, great wide receivers. So, they could do bits. They could be quite a weapon in attack if Joe Burrow is as good as he was in college. So they're three that I reckon that could surprise us. So that actually leads us on to our last category already. I don't think it's going to be the longest potty. But who to steer clear of. So obviously there's a few players like Dwayne Haskins who just don't go there. But I've gone for some more people who were maybe touted as prospects. Not really. I don't think anyone's drafting these geezers. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, this is more a note to myself. I had him. Where did I have him rated in my quarterback rankings? I had him as number 13. In the past, he's been a pretty good fantasy scorer. Last year, in the second half of the year, he was the 6th best quarterback. In 2018, he was the 2nd best quarterback. But I would not be drafting Fitzpatrick this year for one reason and one reason only. Tua Tagovailoa. I think as soon as they get the opportunity, he actually apparently has a chance to start round 1, but I still don't think he will. But I think Tua will be assuming the quarterback role there very soon, if not like round 2. And Miami actually have the hardest fixtures in the whole league. So I wouldn't be drafting Fitzmagic anytime soon. a few other players. Well, we'll go to you boys. I've been talking for a long time. Pilch, who are you steering clear of?
Well, are we saying still out of the top 12 or?
Yeah, out of the. Well, you can if
Okay,
you want, you can say someone in the top 12, but that would be
well,
pretty.
in our consensus top 12, Big
That'd be
Ben.
pretty shocking.
Big Ben is someone who I'm staying clear of. I think I had him
Yep.
15 or 16. I just don't really trust him. Getting old, coming off injury, lost Antonio Brown. But other than him, obviously, don't go near the Bears with Foles and Trubisky. Still don't know who's playing there. But I don't really know other than that because it's you're not really going to see these people get drafted like the Mayfields and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, Big Ben and also Aaron Rodgers, I'm actually starting to dislike him more and more. The more I look at the Packers offense, I just can't see him producing big numbers. So yeah,
Fair enough.
Big Ben and Rodgers.
Russell?
I had Big Ben in there. I'm just worried, much the same as Pilch, worried that he doesn't have Antonio Nera and Juju. Like, he wasn't bad, but he didn't look like he was the flashiest number one wide receiver going around. Obviously, he's like a steadfast in most drafts just because he's got the experience and he's racked up points in the past. So, but yeah, he might be one to just be touch wary of. And then I had Tannehill actually as my other one to steer clear of. I think like most teams, once one coach or one team works out another team, it seemed to go downhill from there. And obviously, they're pretty reliant on Derek Henry for the running. So if they manage to find a way to stop him, they're going to be really reliant on Tannehill. And I'm not sure if he's going to be that out and out QB that's going to be able to throw massive touchdowns in crucial moments. He's more like your organizational system QB that's going to be there to throw your system throw passes and then hopefully get touchdowns that way. So if they find some trouble through the season, he could be one to steer clear of.
Yeah, especially given his performance at the back end of last year, it might see him like overrated. Might see him picked up surprisingly in drafts, even though Fantasy Pros rank him as the 16th best quarterback. It wouldn't surprise me if some people just whip up last year's scores and get him in early. Pilch, like you were saying with the Bears and stuff, basically anyone who's in a quarterback duel, just steer clear. Like, there's not really much point when there's so many other quarterbacks. Even though Fitzpatrick, Taylor, they've shown in the past that they could be good quarterback fantasy candidates because they're not 100% locked in for the season. I wouldn't really bother with them. And then, Trubisky and Foles, that's no go anyway. They're not even that good. Other people I'd steer clear of, I'd actually steer clear of Sam Darnold. Just not a personal thing with him. I think he's not the worst quarterback, but I don't think he's shown anything special in fantasy terms so far in his time in the league, and his attack has not improved one bit. He's still dealing with one of the worst offenses in the league. Kirk Cousins, I don't really rate Kirk Cousins this year. It's kind of tempting just because Minnesota are a fairly good team, but last year and the year before, he kind of just is showing he's just going to be a solid quarterback, but he's not really going to ever do that well. And he's lost Stephon Diggs, so probably won't help his cause there. And then just a couple others, Drew Lock, probably steer clear of him. I don't think anyone is steering towards him anyway. But with their pickups and stuff, people might be tempted. But last year, what did he average? He averaged like 14, and they were winning games. So I don't think he is going to be a fantasy prospect this year. And then although I actually said he could surprise us, I'd steer clear of Joe Burrow. I think sometimes people can get pumped up because he was number one picked in the draft. And someone who's not that educated in the fantasy world might just go, oh, well, he's going to just start replicating his LSU form straight away. But I wouldn't take him. He's a pretty big risk. Bengals, they're probably one of the worst teams in the league, so I would steer clear of him 100%. So yeah,
I've got another one to throw out there. I'm not sure where his ADP is, but Phil Rivers. Do not draft Phil Rivers. He's going to be averaging. He'll average less than Brissett was last season.
Killed me last season. Killed me.
Did you have him?
That's what I got to say. I had him for quite a bit.
Far out, mate. What were you thinking?
We've actually pretty much touched on every quarterback. So there's one more who's in the top 20 on Fantasy Pros that we haven't mentioned.
Who is it?
Jared Goff. Where do we stand on him? He's someone who, it's tough to say because he's so unpredictable, but he could kind of be a streamer, I guess, because although he wasn't great last year, they still put up a few high-scoring matches. But I don't know. What do you think about Jared Goff, Kurt?
A system QB, I reckon. He's definitely relying on McVay, who's an absolute genius and somehow got them to a Super Bowl with probably an average QB now that we've had a bit more of a sample size to see. But yeah, I think I don't know, if McVay can think of something, which I wouldn't be surprised of, considering apparently he's got a photographic memory, so he's freaking genius. Yeah, just thought I'd put that out there, boys. Yeah. Then Goff might actually be a streamer for sure. Like he could end up having a reasonable season, and against lower sides where they racked up points last year, I think he could rack up tons. So we'll have to see. He's definitely not someone to have in your team by no means, but he could either be steer clear of or a streamer. It just depends on how we see the Rams go this season.
Yeah, I might be a little bit scarred from him because I actually had him for a bit last season and he was spitting out like 3 points some weeks. I'm pretty sure one week I needed him to score 9 and he got like 1.4 or something like that through like 4 picks.
I think you either traded for him. There was a trade with me and you for him, or I got rid of him and you picked him up on waivers.
Yeah, don't remind me, mate. But on the flip side, I don't think he can be any worse than he was last season.
True.
Like he was that bad, and then toward the end, he actually started putting up some decent scores, and then obviously he has Woods, Cup, and Tyler Higbee, who broke out at the second half of last year as well. But yeah, I would not be drafting him in the top 20, I don't think.
Yeah, and according to my O-line ranking thing, apparently last year he had like the second worst O-line, and this year it's improved a little bit.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah, however, they do have the Cowboys, Eagles, and then the Bills. So I'd probably just wait through that 3 weeks, see how they go. If he's done all right then, because then they've got the Giants and the Redskins. So if he's passed those a few tough tests in that first 3 rounds, he could be someone to look at. But yeah, he's an unpredictable one, so probably another one I would add to the steer clear list. But yeah, that's all we've got really. Only a short one today. I'm actually starting to get on a roll with these short ones. Need to bloody get them back up to an hour. But the next fantasy episode we're going to be doing will be our top 12 running backs. We might make it top 15 maybe, I don't know, because I think we might have less to say about the running backs, but we'll talk about that behind closed doors.
Keen for that
one.
Be
a juicy one. Yeah, I'm actually real keen for that one. That's going to be juicy.
I think it's going to be a lot more unpredictable than the quarterback thing.
For sure, I reckon.
Yeah, because I think you can move up and down a bit more as a running back, where a quarterback's kind of.
We've seen that behind closed doors already. Actually, we've seen that.
Oh yeah, we've had a bit of beef about old Leonardo Fournette.
Yes,
the great man, Big Leonard.
Yes.
But so yeah, look forward to that one. We'll have to do some research, won't we, over the next week? But yeah, that's pretty much it for tonight. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. This is coming out on a Saturday morning. So although we're at the end of our weekend, you're just starting it. So make it a good one. Good luck tomorrow, Pilch. We'll know by the time this is out, but we're getting our uni results tomorrow because we were not too lazy. I was actually just didn't want to get texted my results. So I held off on the. I just
That's
held
just-
off on
that's
the
just
early
straight up
results.
weird, mate.
Well, I don't want to just be in the middle of the day watching Bachelor or something. Just look at my phone and then I've realised I failed 4 units. But nah, fair enough.
Pilch, mate, will you be having a little parade tonight that you've passed all your
have faith.
subjects?
He's done it. He's 100% done it.
Yeah, I've done it, mate. Back me
He's
in.
He's passing.
I have faith. Well, after what
He's-
I heard today, I heard Pilch didn't even do his timetable, so he just left
Yeah,
it.
mate.
he
I
left
told
it
him
to
the other
allocate.
day.
I can't
I
even
told him the other day.
get into my Monash at the moment. I'm locked
Mate,
out, but
I told him the other day. Yeah, it's probably like lack of inactivity for 18 months, so they've just assumed he's changed uni.
Pilch is going to be
Yeah,
in
legit
for
is.
5 days. Pilch is going to be in for 5 days a week. Just
Mate, I
doing-
legit was talking to him the other day, and I was like, talking about the timetable, and he's like, I was like, oh, I got mine in like pretty much first day, and he's like, oh, I didn't even know they'd come out, and I'm like, yeah, they're closed already, mate. So pretty good footy from you. But no, good luck for the results. And yeah,
You too, mate.
thanks for
Good luck,
joining me,
boys.
lads.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure.
And
Pleasures.
Thanks for listening or watching, whatever you're doing. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Cheers, bye.
Good boys.